Hey there, this is the Ask Miniatures channel, and I'm going to show you how to go from this to this. Alright, so first and foremost, let's go over all the software we're going to need to download in order to get started. Obviously, you'll need to have Tabletop Simulator installed. The next thing to look at is the TTS mod project for Unity, which can be found right here. The link here will take you to the GitHub page. Just click this button over here and click Download Zip. Then make sure you unzip it somewhere you can find later because it's kind of important. After that, you can follow the links to install Unity, and that takes us to this site where you'll need to find and install Unity 2019.4.4. After that, we should install Blender. Just whatever the latest version is, doesn't really matter. If the UI changes significantly with some new version, maybe I'll update the video, but probably not. One quick note, make sure you are downloading it from blender.org, because if you just Google Blender 3D or Blender and click some of the top results, you could end up with God knows what on your computer. And finally, you'll need to install Polycam from the Google Play Store onto your phone. This tutorial is for Android phones because that's what I have. I'm sure there's an iOS equivalent, but I use Androids. This is how I'm going to show you how to do this. Now that we have all the software we need, let's actually scan our model. Polycam does a pretty good job guiding you through the first scan, so I won't waste your time re-explaining it to you. Here's our guy all scanned and ready to export. Since we're in the free version, we'll have a few hoops to jump through. First, let's hit the export button in the top right, select GLTF, then a window like this will pop up. So because this file is pretty small, I'm just going to email it to myself. You could also choose to upload it to your Google Drive. And here's just a quick view of my capture setup. It's the same setup I use to photograph my minis. Nice solid color background. I just have a black curtain I bought at Walmart. And some even lighting will really help the capture come out nicely. And it leads to less cleanup time later if you've got a solid background color. But in retrospect, maybe a white background would have been better. Okay, now that we have the file on our PC, let's bring it into Blender. First, we load up this random junk that comes in with a new scene. Then hit File, Import GLTF, and select your model. And here he is. So let's lift him up, rotate him around, make sure he's even up with the ground, and we should probably scale him up a bit. The scale can be pretty loose because we can fix it later in TTS. You might be wondering why he's all gray. To see textures, you can hit your Z key, then select Material Preview. Next, we need to clean up the model so that it's just him and not half of my table and a bunch of random cables. To do this, we need to use Blender's sculpting tools by going to the Sculpt section in the top left tab. To take care of some of these big areas, we can use the box trim tool over here to essentially crop out these areas of extra junk. For finer detail, we can switch to the lasso trim tool and essentially draw the shape we want to cut out from the geometry. It might not have been clear, but to switch from the box trim to the lasso trim tools, click and hold the box trim button. This is by far the most tedious part of the process, especially if you are like me and scan a model with a bunch of fiddly, spindly bits and fine details. There's one extra step we need to do since we're going from a GLTF to Unity. We need to get our textures out as separate files so we can use them to render materials in Unity. If you don't know what that means, don't worry, I will explain it. To do that, we need to go to shading mode. Select at the top of the screen here. After that, you'll see this graph and an image of your texture on the left. To get your texture out, select the node called Base Color, Then on the left, select this hamburger menu here, then image, save as, and save it somewhere you can find it later. Do the same for the occlusion node and we are good to go. Okay, so I went ahead and skipped through all the boring cleanup steps so you can just see what it looks like when it's done. I actually put a little cylinder under it to act as a base. You probably won't have to do this if you did a better job scanning. But anyway, let's go ahead and export out this model in a format that Unity can read. To do this, select File, Export, FBX, and just leave all the options as default. So now we will have something we can kick out to Unity. So next we're going to go ahead and open up Unity. If it comes up with a prompt to select a project, select the folder you got from the GitHub link called Tabletop Simulator Modding Master. Once it's opened up, make a new folder for all of your work, then right-click anywhere in some blank space and select Import New Asset and find your FBX. Then do the same thing and bring in his textures. So he's going to come in all gray. So what we need to do is create a material for him. So we right click, create material, and give it a name. So in this material we'll want to change the shading mode from standard to unlit texture. We do this because your texture that you created has the lighting information baked in. So having outside lighting plus the baked lighting will look kind of weird. If you want to get fancy, I've gotten some good results by overlaying the occlusion texture over the base color texture in Photoshop and altering the opacity until it looks good. This will give it a little extra definition, but it isn't a requirement at all. Now all we need to do is put our texture into this box right here, then click on our model, and here in the right, apply our textures to the model itself. Now it looks super dope, just like in real life. To get the asset out of Unity and into a format that TTS can read, while you have the model selected, look at the bottom right here where it says Asset Bundle. Select New and give it a name. Now we've created an asset bundle, which basically packs up an asset like your model and anything it needs to be able to work properly all in one place. Now to kick it out, we go to Assets, Build Asset Bundles. That asset bundle and any others you might have made in the past are now in a folder inside the TTS Modding Master folder called Asset Bundles. That's it. Now we can get out of Unity. Alright, so as you can see, I've opened up TTS and opened the DQ Age of Sigmar 3.0 mod. If you don't have that, I can put a link in the description below, because it's good to see your model in the context it's actually going to be played in. So to load it up, we go to Objects, Components, Custom, Asset Bundle. Then click somewhere and right click, and then this dialog box comes up. So let's find our file, select Figurine, and leave everything else default. Then when it comes up with this message, it's important to click Steam Cloud. Otherwise you can only have it locally and no one else can see it if you play online. So while we're in here, we can actually place our model on this spot over here and make sure it's the right scale and make the appropriate adjustments. Then we can right click, save as object, and name it something that makes sense. Now, last but not least, let's see how we can put this guy onto the Steam Workshop page for the whole world to see. We need to generate an empty scene. So what I usually do is just load up the sandbox game, delete all this junk, and bring in my saved object by going to Objects, Saved Objects. Then once we feel like he's ready to go, we go to Modding Workshop, Upload, and fill all this stuff out. And there you have it. Your scanned model is now on Steam.